And we're back with the Buffalo Juggalo Radio Show. And right now I wanted to introduce a new segment. I know I mentioned it briefly earlier. This is called Get Schooled by Polmar. As many of you know, I was originally going to school to be an educator. I was originally thinking about being an English professor or a history teacher, something along those lines. But I did major in math as well, and that is going to be the topic of today's lesson. Now, I know some of you might find this, or might think, school and stuff is boring, but that's the purpose of this segment. Spend a few minutes, refresh your memory, make things fun, because, like I said, education is important, and it's my mission to make sure everyone is educated. So, for our first lesson, if you want to get out a piece of paper, I'll actually have something posted up on the radio show wall also, like a little reference sheet, if you will. Our lesson today is on math, and we're just going to go over a few common things, in mathematics. And first of all, what is very important, everyone should remember, is your order of operations. Now, those of you, if you can remember back to your high school math class, they called it PEMDAS, PEMDAS. And it was probably like, I don't know, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally or something. I don't know. I thought of a fun new way for us, adults, for us juggalos to remember this PEMDAS, and that is, please eat my dick and sack. So, if you remember, please eat my dick and sack when you're looking at a mathematical equation, what this breaks down to is parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. And that's the order in which you would do things. So first, say you're looking at something, and we're going to look at an equation here in a moment, but say you're looking at an equation, and there's, all sorts of things, and there's parentheses. You look inside the parentheses first, and you do whatever's in there, following the order if there's more parentheses, or if there's exponents, 3 squared, or 4 cubed, 7 to the 8th power, something like that. That's an exponent. That's what you would conquer next, after the parentheses, followed by your multiplication and division. Those can, you can switch those back and forth, whichever comes first. Those don't matter as long as they're together in a group. And then lastly, your addition and subtraction. Those go last. So, once again, just to go through this, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Please eat my dick and sack. Those are your mathematic order of operations. So, now let's actually apply this, all right? And we'll do a word problem here. You and your homies, you guys just picked up a fresh sack of chronic, and you're heading over to the local venue to go to a Juggalo show. And now the way to get there is you can walk down. It's about 3 blocks down, and then you make a left, and it's another 4 blocks to get down at the club. However, you guys just got this, this bag of weed, and you're trying to get nice and high before you go walking in there, obviously, of course. So what do? Well, along this block that you gotta walk, there's actually a graveyard, and it takes up a big chunk of space. So you guys decide, okay, well let's just cut diagonally through the graveyard. We could twist up a blunt and smoke it on the way through. That way no one's gonna fuck with us, we can get high, and maybe we'll get there quicker. But one of your other homies argues and says, wait a minute, if we cut through the graveyard, it's going to be a longer walk than if we just walk down and over. And you, of course, argue back and say, no, it's going to be shorter. Well, now you got to explain why. And how is this? Well, a lot of you may remember the term Pythagoras' theorem. And that refers to triangles and sides. And that is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So now in our example, if you were to think about it, your streets that you're going to walk, your block, it's 3 blocks down, 4 blocks over. That makes up the leg of a right triangle, which is a triangle with a 90-degree angle. And then your trip through the graveyard is your hypotenuse. Think of that like the dotted slanted line, connecting across. So a squared plus b squared. A is your first side, b is your second side. So if you're 3 blocks and 4 blocks, those are your side. So a is 3, b is 4, leaving c squared is your trip through the graveyard. So we have 3 blocks and 4 blocks. So to plug that into the equation, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. 3 squared, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 squared is 16. So 9 and 16, 9 plus 16 equals c squared, add them together, that's 25. And then what you have to do here is you have to go in reverse now. 25 equals c squared. What you do is you basically take the square root of both sides. Whatever you do to one side of the equation, if you think of the equal sign, kind of like a barrier, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. You got to keep it even. So take the square root of c, the square root of c squared cancels out that little, the exponent of the 2, so it just becomes c. On the other side, you have the square root of 25, which is 5. So to do the math, 5 equals c. 5 blocks is the equivalent, that's going to be your trip through the graveyard. It will be the equivalent of 5 blocks. So you turn to your homie and you say, after you show him this math, then you say, are you done rolling that blunt yet? Because we have 5 blocks to walk, because if you want to go the long way around, it's going to be 7 blocks, because 3 and 4 is 7. Remember, the hypotenuse is always shorter than both of the legs added together. So, once again, I had this sketched up for you. It's gonna be on the wall, on the Facebook wall, the radio show. If you wanna check this out again. So also kind of speaking of sides and lengths and stuff. A couple quick formulas you're gonna want to remember. For example, when you're dealing with squares and rectangles, area equals length times width. So the area inside of a space, you take one side and multiply it by the other side. If you want the volume of a cube, then it's length times width times height. You got to add in the height also. And then when you're dealing with circles and things like that, remember as far as your terms go, circumference is the entire outside of the circle. Diameter is the length from one side across to the other side. Inside the circle, like if you were to cut it in half. And then the radius is 1/2 of the diameter. The area of a circle is pi r squared. Remember, pi is 3.141592. Doesn't matter. If you round it down, a lot of schools, in school they have you round it down to 3.14. That's a little too vague. Go with 3.1416 at least. If you're going to multiply. But the area of a circle, pi r squared. The circumference is 2 pi r. Remember, r is the radius, 1/2 the diameter. And then also there was one last thing I wanted to do a little refresher on here. And we're going to go back to our scenario a moment. Okay, so you and your homies, you walk through the graveyard, you smoke your blunt, you get to the club. Right? Now you get outside in line and you realize, everyone has a bottle of Faygo with them. Everyone's brought one. And in your head, you start to kind of put this little graph together. And, for you to visualize it, remember, when you do a graph and you have your axes, okay, your x-axis is what runs horizontal. That's the bottom axis. And then the y-axis runs up and down. And remember that the center is 0, 0, like a grid, like a regular graph. And then say you wanted to chart this, the number of juggalos versus the amount of Faygo. Well, you could do it, one of other ways. It's like, well, let's see. How's it go? If there's, more Faygo, that means more juggalos will come. Or if more juggalos will come, that means there will be more Faygo. It's up to you. I'm pretty sure in this scenario that they're pretty directly proportionate. But, let's say in this instance you walk outside the club and you see your homie standing there, and everyone's bringing Faygo out. So we'll put Faygo on our x-axis, we'll put juggalos on our y-axis, and in this case, since it's a direct proportion 1-to-1, it'll just be x equals y, or actually, when you're looking at a graph, it's usually y equals, so y equals x in this case. For every one juggalo, there's one bottle of Faygo. So, Just to recap again, really quickly, our little lesson this week in math, we went over the order of operations. Please eat my dick and sack, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. We looked at some of the formulas behind a square and a circle and their width and volumes. Then we also looked at a word problem which involved right triangles and the Pythagorean theorem, and going over how to solve for a hypotenuse. So once again, go ahead and check us out on the Facebook page, the Buffalo Juggalo Radio Show. I'll have a nice little note board posted up there for y'all to check out, if you want to see some of this visualized. And stay tuned each week for more little lessons. It won't all be math. We're going to do science, we'll do history, we're going to do English, we'll do health class. I think I want to do a sex ed one of these weeks. We'll do a sex ed lesson. So, I don't know, it's something, just to have fun with. Like I said, some of you probably think math's boring. Trying to make school a little more interesting for everyone, and I want to feel like I'm doing something good with the show. I want to feel like I'm spreading some education a little bit, and I'm, like I said, I'm gonna try to make it fun. Like our little word problem tonight with you and your homies smoking a blunt on your way to the show. So, enough rambling though right now about math. We have a lot more show to get through, so I'm gonna take us out to a break. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Buffalo Juggalo Radio Show on Hatchet Radio. What's up, everyone? I'm Polmar.
And I'm Trippy Two-Face.
And we're the hosts of the Buffalo Juggalo Radio Show.
You can catch us every Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern on Hatchet Radio.
We'll be bringing you all the freshest and underground music news, interviews, featured artists, and so much more.
With a special focus on the 716 and beyond. This is the official broadcast of Buffalo Juggalos.
Come scope us out at hatchetradio.net and hit us up at facebook.com/Buffalo Juggalo Radio Show.
We have tons of contests and giveaways coming up on our page.
So don't sleep on
The Buffalo Juggalo Radio Show, Saturdays at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Only on Hatchet Radio.
Holding down the 716 Buffalo.